Ride the Car Guy here, and today we're going to be removing the axle from the TT. Now, the axle is held in by a 30 millimeter 12-sided nut that goes straight onto the end of the axle. Now, as you can see, I've already removed the caliper and the rotor and my tie rod end and my sway bar link. Basically, I'm also taking off the strut and doing some other videos, but this video is going to be just taking off the axle and pulling the whole assembly out, putting a new one in. Now, if you don't have an impact wrench, make sure that before you get to this point, you've already gotten a breaker bar and loosened this nut. I have a impact wrench, so I'm just going to take it off, and I already loosened it. Just take the nut off, and I'm actually going to remove this entire assembly, and we're going to take the axle off once the entire assembly is out. So just loosen that, and then down below, you're going to have 3 nuts that hold on the lower ball joint. Loosen those, and then we'll go ahead and we will take off the upper bolt on the strut and then pull the whole assembly out. Alright, so this is where the strut is mounted on the top, so inside the engine bay. Now, this actually has just a 13/16 nut, and on the inside it has a number 7 Allen wrench on the actual post where you're supposed to unscrew this. Now, there's a special tool that you can buy from Audi that is a lot of money. It's like $100 or $150, which is effectively just an open ratchet that you can pass through another bit to hold this in place. Now, I found a way around that, and I noticed that spark plug sockets have this end on it, this sort of keyed end, where we can get an adjustable wrench or just a regular open face wrench. And then also, I just took my number 7 Allen wrench, and it will pass straight through this. So now we have effectively the same tool just for free, because it was just stuff I had lying around. So just put this in place, put the Allen in place, push it through, put it into the top of the post, and then slide this down over top of the nut. And then I just took an an adjustable wrench, and then I just took a little screwdriver head with a 7 millimeter on it, and then I was able to loosen this and get it off. So just hold this in place, turn this left until the top nut comes off. There we go. Once it's off, set that aside, and this is now free. It's just kind of sitting here, flopping around, and that is ready to come off of the bottom end. Once you have that off, just go ahead and take these little, basically electrical wire holders, and just pop them off of the side of the strut. Now that everything is loose, this will just kind of flop around in here. You'll want to not only support it from the bottom, and I'm going to do that with just a little jack, just to make sure that you're not putting too much pressure on your CV joints or your bushings for your lower control arm. My lower control arm happens to be messed up anyways, and I'm going to be redoing the bushings, but that's beside the point. Alright, once you have everything loosened, that's going to be the 3 bolts down below, the one up top, and of course your axle nut. You pull that off, you should be able to lift everything off. There we go. And then pull the whole assembly out and go very, very gently set it aside somewhere. Now that the axle's exposed, I'm actually on the passenger side. This one's a lot longer. You have to go a lot further in to get the axle out. But this particular one is just secured to the side of the transmission with 6 10 millimeter triple square or 12-sided bolts that you need to pull out, and then the entire assembly comes out. So let's do that next. Now the next step is actually removing the axle. And if you follow the axle back to the transmission, you'll see that it has 6 what they call triple square. It's just 12-sided bolts that need to come out. Now just either have someone put on the brakes if you have something in the caliper on the open side, or you can just put a chalk in your wheel and to keep it from rotating. So just take these out one by one, and you can just actually rotate the axle as you go to gain access to these, and then remove them and then pull the axle right out. Once you remove the 6 bolts that are against the transmission, slowly pull the axle out of the wheel well and just look at the end of it as you're pulling it out to make sure you're not hitting anything. Just guide this one out. All right, so here's our axle. We're just going to go get the new one, and all we have to do is just put those 6 bolts back in, and then we'll reassemble the rest of this. So here's our new axle. It's going to come with a new axle nut. Just leave that on. Leave all this protected. You might as well. We're going to deal with this later. But this side is the side that's going to go into the transmission. So just guide it back through and just be very careful not to hit anything. And go set it in place. Right there. Okay. So you'll see that it's in place underneath. And all you have to do is put those 6 bolts back in at 52 foot-pounds. So let's go do that. If you're doing this alone, make sure you have the axle supported by I just did a bungee cord, and I did it up through the hole that the top mount of the strut goes in. So line up the side here, make sure the holes are lined up, and start driving in those bolts. So now that the axle is back in place, we've effectively replaced it. So now just reassemble all of your parts and just be very wary of your splines. Be very careful about knocking those around. You want those in prime condition when you're sliding them into the hub. So reassemble it all and get back out on the road. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, put them in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.